Hello, welcome to the week 4 module, which is going to look at the correlation between the monopoly of EMS and the market in EMS. And we'll dive a little bit more into that, and then how that could adversely affect our quality improvement initiatives, specifically when it comes to customer service. Now, one of the things that I do like to point out is the idea or the old adage that somebody actually said I hate the words customer service. And the truth of the matter is customer service and first response is everything, especially when it comes to fire and EMS. There's a fire chief out of Phoenix, Arizona, Alan Brunacini, created a little cartoon textbook called Customer Service in the Fire Service. It was about this thick and it had little cartoons on it. But one of the things that he pointed out so well is that people are going to call us when they need help, when they feel like they're in their worst position. It's an emergency to them. And if we show up and we don't treat them with respect and give them good customer service, we're squandering a lifelong love affair that has existed with public safety since Ben Franklin started throwing buckets on barns in Philadelphia. So we certainly don't want to squander that. And in an EMS realm, it's even more difficult because people are, can complain a little bit more. They can be more agitated. It's not just that they're scared, they're in pain, they're uncomfortable. And, nobody here is in the best mood they've ever been in when they get a toothache. And so we certainly want to watch that. One of the factors, the 10,000-foot view factors, the stressors that come externally on the customer service component is the monopolization of EMS, or the factor of monopolization. We're a closed group, right? We have specialty equipment. We're expensive, and depending on what state you live in, the regulatory environment could make it almost impossible for another ambulance company or fire service to operate in that area. And so it's a one shop fits all, or a one size fits all. It's a closed shop. Think about our county-based fire and rescue EMS systems, or even our municipal-based EMS systems. You don't have an ambulance service that you could choose to come in and do that 911. Those people are paid for by the county or the city, and that comes from your tax dollars. If you look at some areas that use commercial services, such as the larger companies, usually those are either contracted by the community, which maybe that somebody else can adhere that contract. I mean, if you look at the New Haven, Connecticut area, you're talking about 180,000 calls for service. And 911, it's not going to be easy for some small company to come in and supplant that contract. Add to that the regulatory components in many states that might make that almost impossible because of the amount of infrastructure that has to be invested. So really what happens is you have this attitude that can develop amongst the providers that nobody else is coming. And so if I'm having a bad day and I pass that bad day on to you, it's okay because I don't have to worry about customer service. You can't call anybody else. And maybe that's true, right? Coke doesn't taste as good as Coke if it wasn't for Pepsi. UPS would really be bad if it wasn't for FedEx. You know what I mean? These are the things that we look at, right? And so look at what Uber did to the cab industry. So that is an issue, and that's something that we need to reinforce. And it's not an easy thing to do because we do have a difficult position, right? We do have a very tough job. We have difficult, working conditions. It's getting busier. Reimbursement rates are getting less. So we have all these problems, right? So what we want to really start to do is look at where we need to focus our customer service efforts, right? We can find that out a lot based on the correlation of the demographics in the market that we serve. So certain demographics are going to need different things, right? They're going to need more focus in certain areas, right? So in the case of an underserved population, maybe a huge customer service thing that we could go for is free education. We're an industry that pays well. It's a good living wage. It's not going anywhere. Is that a customer service initiative that you use? You work for Jones Ambulance Company, or you manage Jones Ambulance Company, and you're going to start offering subsidized or free EMT training to people in the community if it's an underserved community. It's a $1,500 class for an EMT. It's very, very difficult for them to pay for it. In this community, you find a community center, you align with an alderman, and you run a free class. I see that happen all the time. Free CPR. Maybe you're in a very religious area of the country and you want to go do free CPR at church groups, free stop the bleed training. And then you kind of encourage, just look at the last week. Let's encourage a disciplined process where people understand what the community's needs are, and then reinforce it with your supervisors, right? If my staff is hungry and cold and tired and overworked and exhausted, then they're going to treat people poorly, not because they're bad providers, but because they're agitated and anxious and less patient, and that's common, right? So maybe we reinforce that with the supervisors. Hey, if you're not jumping on the truck and helping these crews out or covering them, or working with dispatch to understand the operational implications of who's actually in the seat, then you're failing at the customer service, because it's inevitably going to lead to some kinds of issues. So these are things that we want to look at. We want to target it, right? Target our customer service. We want to ensure that our workforce flow is our workforce is flowing appropriately, and make sure that everybody's in positive spirits, because it does really make a big deal. Understand too, we need to start to focus on some of the things that actually create customer service issues. And in commercial services, this is something that we can really focus on easily, right? So one of the biggest ones we're going to get is long response times. Where were you? I called 911 an hour ago. It was more like 12 minutes, but still, is that acceptable or not? Did the communication team not communicate effectively? Okay, we're sending an ambulance out, whatever. When you get there prior to 15 minutes from downtown, next thing you know, they're yelling at you like it's your fault. And you're like, hey, I got this call as a non-emergency call. Do they understand the triage implication? Is that something that we want to reinforce with our demographic? In a population that may not be as underserved, they may want everything now, right? I want it now. Where is my ambulance now? And so now, do we have to get out there with our customer service and actually make understanding of what EMD and EMD triage is, right? For your non-emergency stuff, it's the same stuff, right? Hospitals get mad when it takes you too long. And most of the time, you're going to find out that hospitals aren't mad because it took you too long. Hospitals are mad because you didn't tell them it was going to take you that long. Don't lie. Oh, I can't tell you how many complaints they fielded where the dispatcher would say to the floor nurse, oh, they're there. And then 35 minutes later, they're not there yet. Well, they are there. They had just arrived dropping off a 911 call, or they weren't really there yet. They were kind of on their way with a 911 call, right? And so, yeah, I understand the process, but you wouldn't have had any problem if the nurse heard, okay, the crew that I'm going to assign this is transporting right now, barring any major emergencies that come up, they should be there within 45 minutes. Something along those lines is going to go a long way, and it's just about effective communication. What are we actually doing here in the 911? And that's the same everywhere. If you're sitting there waiting for your sandwich because the grill broke down and somebody told you that the grill broke down, okay, you know what I mean? I'm waiting for my sandwich. You got a cold sandwich in there, or are you reheating the grill? What are we doing? Right. So very, very similar in other industries that we deal with. We knew, we discussed at length the quality improvement, but I think really the final component of this is the feedback loop, right? So if we're going out and maybe doing a system survey, going out and polling people, how do you feel about your fire and EMS delivery, right? Your police service delivery. You wouldn't, obviously, if we're working in EMS, we'd only be focused on EMS. But how do you feel? How does this affect, positively or negatively affecting you? Send out a hyperlink on your social media page, and say, hey, we'd like you to create this survey monkey. Have you used the service? What instance did you use the service? What was your experience with the service? You pretty well can weed out the garbage that people are just kind of creating problems. Like, I heard the greatest line the other day about social media. It said, we didn't used to share our opinions with everybody all the time. Now all of us know what everybody else is thinking, and we've come to the realization that we are all crazy and can't handle it. And it was in response to the toxicity that exists on social media. So you're certainly going to have some people that are going to be, negatively affecting us. Um, but ultimately, I think, for the most part, you'll get some good feedback, and now you can start to implement some changes. If that happens, you want to close that loop. You want to let them know, hey, hello, everybody, same social media page. Thanks for the survey. We got a wonderful time. We're doing this. These are some of our quality improvement initiatives that we're working on. Obviously, if it's something that's going to scare everybody, hey, I have 3 paramedics that are running around murdering friendly civilians, we're probably not going to say, hey, we've put in a no murdering policy in the handbook. Um, but certainly, if somebody said, they didn't feel like the response times were there, hey, one of our quality assurance initiatives is we're redrawing our map lines for our status management, or we're looking at a new computer-aided dispatch system for our, to help employ the use of artificial intelligence. We've started to audit. Care plans. We've started to randomly arrive on scenes with supervisors for customer service initiatives. We can list all of these things, and now those people that truly care about what's going on in their public safety will pay attention to that. You've closed the feedback loop, and they have a total understanding of what to be expected, and that's huge. And if you're working in a community that has open town meeting form of government or an aldermanic chamber form of government, that's a lot of political capital that you may earn because they understand that you're responsive to them. You're not that monopolizing public safety resource that is responding to calls because there's nobody else that can do it. Brunacini once said that, and if I paraphrase a little bit, I apologize. He said that if we ever get so smart and so elite and so trained that we outgrow the promise that we made to the public to show up and help them as best we can every time, we might as well close up shop and go sell aluminum siding to people who live in brick houses. And that's the truth. We can't get so blinded by our own heroic God complex that we forget the fact that there is a customer on the other end of the phone that is needing us for help. And when we show up, we need to treat them with respect, and we need to speak positive over our organization. So in conclusion, remember, we go back to the first week, leadership versus management. Keep it positive. Make sure everybody knows what the mission objectives are. Make sure they know what the expectations and standards are, and move forward. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day, and I'm looking forward to reading your work.